What's so great about mixing the painkillers, like the oxycodones or whatever it is, with the muscle relaxers? I feel like so many people do that.
I didn't like it. I like the pain pills and Xanax, but I don't like the muscle relaxers.
You didn't like the muscle relaxers?
Nah, but
it's it's like a popular thing, right? It was a popular thing.
Yeah.
People that are addicted, they eat a lot of those, like whether they're Vicodins or Oxys or whatever they are, they usually mix them with muscle relaxers.
Yeah, I know people that have done that. The reason why I don't like muscle relaxers is I was getting arrested one day and I had like 15 somas in my pocket.
Somas, that's what they're called, yeah.
Yeah, and I knew I was getting arrested. Like I could feel, the cop was gonna, it was just a matter of time before he put the handcuffs on me. And I had these pills that I'm prescribed, but they're out of the bottle, so I'm kind of freaking out in my head, like, here's a possession charge. So I just ate all 15 of them.
Oh, man.
So by the time I get to the jail and they, like, bring me up to the computer, I was, like, foaming at the mouth because a muscle relaxer, like, relaxes your muscles, but your heart's a muscle, too.
Right.
So I was literally, like, awake in my body looking at you through my eyes and knew what I wanted to say to you, but I couldn't make my mouth do it. So I was like sitting there, bro, like helpless.
Vegetable.
Yeah, bro. It was so that's why I don't like muscle relaxers and pain pills mixed together and Xanax.
I've had a few close calls in my younger days with one time I had my wisdom teeth pulled out and I got prescribed Vicodin and they gave me this giant bottle of Vicodin.
That's how they do it.
I remember one day, back in those days, I was like drinking and partying all the time. And one night, me and a couple of my buddies, we were drinking a lot of Jack Daniels and partying, doing some other substances, and I ate like the last 4 Vicodins that I had in my prescription. And boy, did that fuck me up. I was paying for that for like the next 2 days. I was fucked up bad.
Because you didn't have a tolerance.
No.
So you were high and sick at the same time.
Yes, bro.
Yeah,
I was
fucked
feeling. Up.
That is
and
definitely.
That was the last time I ever fucked with anything like that. I mean, it was only because I got prescribed it. I would have never had any desire for that stuff,
right,
unless the doctor prescribed it to me.
Yeah, that's kind of how it was for me, man. Like it wasn't like I went out one day and was like, man, let me get some heroin, because that's basically what the pills are. It's just a synthetic form, and I didn't like it either when I did it, man. And then, like, I don't know, I guess it's because I have that gene in me or whatever. I have like an addictive personality, and at that point, like in my life, like, things weren't going great. Like, they were going great because I could pay my own bills, make money, and do all that stuff. But, like, internally, like, spiritually, it wasn't going great. Like, I hated who I was. I hated the life I was living, but I just couldn't see it any other way at that point in my life. It was like, tunnel vision. And so when we moved to Tampa, we were going to the doctors. Well, we had just moved into that condo I was telling you about. And when the day, like, after we moved in, I had to go take like 5 people to the doctor. So I go do all that. I get like what they owe me. I get my shit, and I'm on my way home. I get home, and there's this chick that's been hanging out, I guess, with my girlfriend that lives like in the same place as us. And so I had some people coming over. So I was like, yo, you need, like, who is this chick? Like, get her out of here. You know what I mean? Because I didn't want her to see everything that was going on.
Right.
So she gets the keys and tells me, well, I'm going to go do laundry at the laundromat and grab something to eat with her. I'm going to bring her with me. And I'm like, all right, whatever. So they leave, my friends come over, I do what I have to do. And then, like, probably an hour later, they come back. And, like, right when she walked in the door, I could tell something was off. You know what I mean? Like, it wasn't, like, when something's off with your girl, you know what I mean? So I was like, well, I was asking her, and she was just playing it off, like, oh, nothing. And then, like, 5 minutes later, there's a knock at the door. So I'm like, oh, I'm thinking it's somebody, like, that needed more stuff or whatever and just forgot it or something. So I answered the door, and when I answered the door, it was a cop, and she's like, is so-and-so here? And, like, it was a small condo, so he can see her standing behind me in the living room. So when they were out at Chili's, they left and they rear-ended someone at a stoplight and then took off, didn't stay, because I guess she had a suspended license and I didn't know it, but she knew it, and that's why she took off, and someone got her plate. So they were there to arrest her. So they're taking her to jail. I tell the girl, like, hey, you got to go. I got to bond her out. I got to figure out all this. So she leaves. I call the bondsman. They're like, it's just a minor charge. She'll be released at like 6 a.m. So I took a bunch of Xanax and went to sleep. So the next morning, I wake up to get ready to go get her. I go out in my living room, and the girl that I told to leave is on the couch with like pills all over the coffee table, pills on the ground. And the first thing that went off in my head was like, dude, this chick's trying to rob me when I was asleep and took too many pills and passed out or whatever. So I go over to wake her up. And right when I touch her to wake up, she starts going into convulsions and like flopping violently, like on my couch. So I'm freaking out, bro. There's so much shit in my apartment. I got weed, a safe full of shit, pills all over now. I don't even know how that happened. So as this is all going on and I'm trying to pick up and put the drugs back in the right bottles, there's a knock at my door. So I'm like,
while she's convulsing like
yeah,
this?
like 7 o'clock in the morning, man. So I'm like, I'm tripping. So I'm like, fuck, I go answer the door. And when I answered the door, it was her grandma. And she's like, have you seen so-and-so? And I'm like, move out of the way. And she can look on my couch and see her granddaughter. So I'm like, oh my gosh. She's like, call 911. And I haven't put the pills in their correct bottle. So I'm like freaking out. I don't want the cops there. You know, I don't want all this shit to be under investigation.
Yeah, right.
So I dial 511 on the phone, and I'm like, 911's not answering to her grandma. She's like, what? Because I'm like paranoid. So I'm just like, man, like I'm a good dude. You know what I mean? I'm not like, I was doing some shitty things in life, but when it all comes down to it, like I have a good heart. I'm a good person. So I'm not going to let this chick die on my couch because I'm, you know, worried about getting arrested. So I called 911. They all like, I would say 10 or 11 cop cars came into the complex, 2 ambulances. She gets taken out in the ambulance. Now the cops are in my house. They're doing their thing. They're picking up every pill that's not in the right container, and they're putting it into bags by the pills. So like Xanax, oxycodone, shit like that. And the detectives are questioning me. They already knew about me too. You know what I'm saying? Like I've already been pulled over by some of these cops and let go, because at that time you could have pills on you as long as they were prescribed to you. So there wasn't really shit legally they could do, but they knew, you know what I mean? They knew what was going on. Hold on one sec. All right. So they knew what was going on, and they were like, they wanted to get me. And this was just their perfect opportunity to not only be in front of me, but in my house where there's tons of shit going on.
Right.
So the detectives, like, they're being assholes, telling me I'm screwed, you're going to jail, which I already knew I was going to go to jail. But so as they're like talking all this shit, they're like, that girl just died in the ambulance, you're fucked. And I was like, what? And like, I was like in shock, right? So they arrest me on sales and delivery of alprazolam, trafficking oxycodone, a delivery charge of some other, I think it was a muscle relaxer, I forget. And so the whole time I'm thinking this girl's dead in the ambulance. I go to jail. When I get to the jail, there's like cameras on me, like the news stations were there. And so I knew like this was like serious, man, and I was freaking out. So I go to jail. She's still on life support she didn't die. The cops were saying that thinking I would like have a mental breakdown and tell them everything. Right. But there wasn't really anything to tell them other than what had happened. Right. But they had it in their mind, I think, that they wanted to get me on every little thing. And that's what they did at first. They charged me with like 8 different charges. And I'm in jail. She's on life support. I'm here talking to an attorney telling me if she dies, I'm going to get capital murder and all this crazy shit. So she ends up pulling out. She ends up living. They take her off life support. They question her and everything. I'm sitting in jail. I bond out while all this is going on, and she just disappears. Like she wouldn't show up to depositions. She wouldn't come to court and say she wouldn't say anything, man. So she had moved, and I forget where she moved, but it was far away, and kind of just like detached herself from the whole thing because her family, I guess, didn't want anything to do with it. And so I fought this case back and forth for like a year and a half. They were changing, this is how they would do it. They would give you a trafficking of oxycodone and then let you sit in jail until they could by the statute formally charge you with that and bring you to court. And then right before that would happen, they wouldn't. And then they changed the charge from trafficking to sales. So now they can keep you again if you're in jail and you can't bond out or you don't have a bond on those charges, because they're like giving themselves enough time to build their case, basically. Even if they don't have one, they're going to bluff and, you know, tell you they do.
Right.
And that's how the system works, man. Like and it works because they keep people in jail. They don't have the resources to get out. And then when they're in there for a while, the first time they come at you with something crazy, like 5 years. Then you sit in for like 3 months. Then they're like, oh, you know, 48 months or 4.5 years or whatever. And they just keep doing that. And they, even if they don't have a case, they don't pull you out and say, hey, our bad. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, right.
Like they just, that's what they do, man. And that's what they did to me. And I didn't even want to plead guilty to anything, like the sales charges or anything, because they didn't really have me on a sales charge. You know what I'm saying? They just thought, but that's not enough. But then, you know, after sitting in there for a year, they came in with 5, they came in with like 3.5, and they finally said 28 months, no probation afterwards, you'll be done. And I already had like so much time in, so I was like, all right. So I took the 28 months and went to prison in the state of Florida.